In 1759, the war between France and Great Britain has been raging for 5 years in the colonies, and Quebec City becomes the turning point in the conflict. On one side, the French rely on the involvement of the Canadian population and their First Nations allies to defend the city. On the other, the British assemble their army, supported by an imposing fleet, to invade Canada. Here is how the events unfold. Spring 1759. French and Canadians build stockades to defend the city. June 26th to July 8th, arrival of the British fleet. They set up 3 camps at Montmorency, Orleans Island, and Point Levis. Night of July 12th to 13th, British forces begin to bombard the city. July 31st, Battle of Montmorency, French victory. August, British exactions in various parishes and attempted landings west of the city. Night of September 12th to 13th, British landing at Foulon's Cove. September 13th, Battle of the Plains of Abraham, British victory. September 18th, Quebec City is surrendered to the British. Winter 1759-1760. Numerous skirmishes between the two armies. April 28, 1760. Battle of Sainte-Foy. French victory. May 15, 1760. French retreat towards Montreal. End of the Siege of Quebec. What you are about to hear is adapted from many eyewitness accounts of the siege and spoken by 4 characters who represent the French, British, Canadian, and First Nations points of view. It's the spring of 1759. While the British are stepping up their efforts to capture the colony, the French, Canadians, and First Nations fortify Quebec City and the surrounding area.
May 31st, 1759. Let me say that work has progressed greatly, despite foul weather. The word is that there are as many regular soldiers as there are Canadian militia, at least 10,000 strong, all told. With a break in the weather, we'll be fit to face the enemy in a month at most. Quebec has been a hive of activity. All the cannon batteries have been garnished and entrenchments dug at Beauport, from the falls on the Montmorency to the crossing at the Little St. Charles River, where there's now a boat bridge, and 5 battalions of regular troops are encamped. A number of ships have been decommissioned to make fire rafts.
I fear that none of these will prevent a landing at Beauport, and according to our general, Louis-Joseph de Montcalm, all our preparations must now be directed to this end.
June 4th, the fleet puts to sea. We count some 150 at the sail, including 10 ships of the line, the rest being transport barges and supply ships. Our assembled forces number 10 battalions, 3 companies of grenadiers from the garrison of Louisbourg, a detachment of artillery, and 5 companies of colonial rangers. In all, there are 8,535 men ready to serve, including officers.
June the 8th. The signal fires are lit, and we surmise that the enemy fleet is now fully massed downstream.
June 21st. We request that all women, children, and livestock be sent to the countryside, and warn officers of the militia to be on the alert for the enemy's arrival.
We make it through the dangerous traverse east of Orleans Island. This feat of navigation comes as a rude surprise to our foes, as we are like as to be the first ever to even attempt such an exploit with an entire fleet. On June 27th, our general, James Wolfe, lands troops on Orleans Island.
June 28th. The fire rafts are released at 11 o'clock at night. All the army is eager to see their effect. But to our dismay, they burst into flames some 2 leagues before reaching the enemy vessels.
The French had high hopes for their fire rafts, but they were promptly snuffed out. I venture to declare that they were certainly the greatest fireworks that could possibly be conceived. June 29th, Colonel Carleton is sent to the point of Orleans Island. That night, Brigadier General Monckton crosses the river to Beaumont, and the following day takes the point of Levy.
July the 1st. Reports have come that the enemy is unloading artillery at Point Levy. It is a menacing turn, and fears for the town run high.
July 6th. Brave warriors from the nation the French call the Outaouais land on Ile d'Orléans and kill 11 of the enemy.
July 12th, at 9 o'clock in the evening. The 6 cannon and 5 mortars of our battery on the south shore begin shelling the town.
We return fire.
The bombardment continues until noon on the 13th. Out of concern for the sufferings of the people, we open the gates of the town. The many women and children who remain behind are in terror. Our great regret is that we have no bread to feed so many unfortunates.
July the 14th. The shelling resumes at 7 o'clock in the morning. On the 15th, there is much cannonading. He keeps up his shelling all night long. And on the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th. July the 24th. I reckon that the enemy must have fired 14 or 15,000 cannonballs since the bombardment began. More than 80 houses are razed by flames or flattened.
General Wolfe has in mind to send the grenadiers against an enemy redoubt down by the St. Lawrence. At 9 o'clock in the morning, on July 30th, the order comes down to make ready attack.
July 31st, the enemy army is conducting various maneuvers, our own likewise.
2 of our 14-gun vessels come up alongside the cataract of Montmorency. They position themselves so as to be able to fire upon one of the redoubts.
5 o'clock in the evening, at low tide, our troops muster in battle order before their entrenchments. As soon as the English capture our redoubt, they march forth in a column toward the heights. But when they come within range, the lively fire of our muskets brings them to a halt.
The disorderly advance and strange conduct of the grenadiers obliges General Wolfe to order a retreat and call off the attack.
Now a furious storm breaks. The the downpour so heavy as to obscure the enemy. When the rain ceases, we see them embarking the wounded and as many soldiers as they can on their transport ships.
We reckon their losses at 400 to 500 men.
The obstacles we face in the campaign are more numerous than we counted on. The natural strength of the country is set against us.
August the 8th, the British launch firebombs onto Lower Town. Fire breaks out in 3 places at once.
General Wolfe set out to bring all Canada to its knees, but he now seems to despair of his endeavor. After his defeat on July 31st, he lays waste to every settlement his troops can reach, reducing every house to ashes.
As of August 19, I know that the English have in the last 2 weeks burned the parishes of Saint-Antoine, Saint-Nicolas, and Sainte-Croix on the South Shore, as well as the houses of Saint-François and Sainte-Famille on Ile d'Orléans, and those of Baie-Saint-Paul. They also sent 600 men downstream on the south bank to burn houses and destroy the crops.
September 4th. The town is in a pitiful state. Only by razing it entirely could things be worse.
September 10th. The General brings with him Admiral Holmes and Brigadier Generals Monckton and Townsend, and a few other officers to reconnoiter the place where they plan to stage their next attack. It is called Fulham. The night of September 12th to 13th, the operation begins as the ships loaded with troops casting off at 1 o'clock in the morning. In them, the soldiers are silent. The night is calm. Montcalm is taken in by our diversions and believes our objective is still Beauport, but before sunrise we disembark on the north bank, west from the town.
This night we expect a victualling ship, so the sentry lets them through, believing them to be our comrades.
Our sentry hears them and calls out, "Who comes?" The answer comes back in good French, "Provision," and this he takes for gospel.
The light infantry commanded by Colonel Howe disembarks immediately. The great undertaking is led and executed with the utmost order and discretion. It is a tremendous surprise for the enemy, who, secure in the natural strength of his position, has never suspected or prepared for a stroke of such boldness. Without hesitation, we scale a cliff of unimaginable steepness, nearly perpendicular and of dizzying height.
Monsieur Lenoir, leading a group of volunteers, engages with the enemy for some time, but at the last, wounded in many places, he is taken prisoner.
When we reach the cliff top,
Guin arrives at Beauport. He tells us with every sign of the greatest fear that he is the only one to have gotten away and that the enemy is on the heights.
I am with Tawawani, the Grand Chief of the Huron, when he joins the French forces in Beauport with 70 of our full-grown warriors, besides some young men.
By around 5 in the morning, the British are already formed up on the heights of Quebec and have even mounted a few small-caliber field guns.
Our warriors hasten from Beauport to join the battle.
The Canadians rush to the plains and fire plenty of rounds, but never make themselves into a proper formation capable of standing up to the British troops.
around 8 o'clock, our 2 short 6-pounders arrive to beleaguer the enemy.
Just then, Monsieur Montcalm arrives on the plains of Abraham with army and navy troops.
Montcalm forms 3 large columns. At about 9 o'clock, the 2 armies begin advancing towards each other. Our ranks number 4,600 professional soldiers.
Monsieur de Montcalm can muster but 4,500 men.
General Wolfe prepares his lines and gives the order to load a second musket ball. In the meantime, enemy sharpshooters harass us continuously, and and many of our soldiers are wounded. An order comes to lie down on the ground and hold this position for protection. Towards 10 o'clock, the enemy begins marching rapidly upon us in 3 columns, uttering loud shouts.
Army regulars march in the center, while those of the Navy are mixed in with the Canadiens on both flanks.
Our army falls impetuously on the enemy, but as there are so many Canadiens, their ragged ranks fall apart quickly, either through haste or because of the uneven terrain.
The enemy continues to fire on us until they are within 40 paces of our line. Our soldiers stand firm with courage and determination, no one firing, bravely following the orders of their officers.
The first French and Canadian ranks kneel, then lie down on the ground after firing.
Now, a grand volley rings out on both sides.
Brutal fire at very short range, the most amazing I have ever seen. Our uncommon firmness joined with the devastation wrought by our salvos and field pieces sow disorder in the French ranks.
After 2 or 3 salvos, our troops on the right turn tail and flee.
I hear warriors say later that the fire inflicted heavy losses on the enemy, but that when General Montcalm ordered the attack, everything went too quickly.
The ardor of our victory is considerably cooled by the loss of one of the great heroes of our own or any age, General James Wolfe. He survives barely long enough to be told that our soldiers have won the day. On hearing the news, he declares, "Then, God be praised, I will die in peace."
Monsieur de Montcalm is wounded in the arm, and the foe is emboldened to advance on our troops. Immediately, our general is wounded a second time. Our retreat becomes a rout.
So great is the chaos that the English are able to enter the town on the heels of our fleeing soldiers.
With the bulk of the enemy forces retreating in disorder, Brigadier General Murray commands our troops to draw swords and give chase, greatly increasing their panic.
Accustomed as they are to falling back in the manner of the savages, the better to round out their pursuers, the Canadians rally in various places, shielded by clumps of trees, and force some of the English corps to give way.
Our army follows them to the outskirts of town, where the greatest share of our losses is affected by lone sharpshooters hidden in the woods.
One is carried into town and examined by surgeons, who give him not 24 hours to live. In the meantime, Monsieur de Vaudreuil calls together all the officers for a council of war. These gentlemen, exaggerating a little the losses we have just suffered, cry out in one voice for the army to retreat to the west of the town.
A meeting of our council is called, and we are told that the order are to follow the army.
We retreat with no shred of order or discipline. Monsieur le Marquis de Montcalm, Lieutenant General, dies of his wounds on this day, the 14th of September, and is buried in the Ursuline convent.
The Commandant Ramsay calls a council of war on the 15th of September. We learn that our provisions will be gone in 3 to 4 days at most, and that we have no choice but to seek terms to save the honor of the King's arms.
On September 17th at noon, they send out a flag of truce and articles of capitulation. Early in the morning, terms of surrender are completed and signed. We take possession of Quebec that evening.
Quebec's capitulation on the night of the 18th renders all our efforts vain. Our sorrow is boundless. When has ever a place been surrendered without first being attacked and overrun?
Take an oath of loyalty to the British Crown. They take it, surrender their weapons, and are free to return to their homes.
But what sort of homes are our people to return to after the devastation? Again and again I take up my pen, and each time it falls from my hands, it is too much to bear. To write it is to recall the heartbreak of it all. We were saved, and now we are lost.
By the end of October, we are sure to be in dire need of winter firewood. Even now, we are forced to scavenge what we can from old fences and ruined houses.
We must make do and overwinter near Montreal. In spring, we will advance and win back Quebec.
December the 3rd. The cold and wind get the better of a number of British sentries, and at least one succumbs.
March 18th. We must concede that scurvy, the effect of the cold and salt rations, is wreaking havoc in the garrison, and each day claims new victims.
With the coming of spring, Monsieur le Chevalier de Levis gives the order, as expected, for the battalions to muster. Departure for Quebec is set for April 20th. On the morning of April 28th, 1760, Monsieur le Chevalier de Levis rides out with his staff to survey the plateau of Abraham and the positions of the enemy.
General Murray has great faith in his troops and decides to join in battle before the French can form up. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the order comes for all soldiers fit for duty to march out from the town in 2 columns. On reaching the field of battle, we see the enemy troops at the edge of the Sillery Wood. As this seemed the best time to attack, the order is given to advance. When we come within range, the light infantry attack them on their left flank, driving them back. Likewise, the volunteers and rangers engage them on their right flank, which falls back in the same way.
After retreating, we return to Sillery Wood, and there we remain.
Having gained a favorable position for these maneuvers, the enemy comes back with a vigorous charge against our right flank. Both sides come with stubborn persistence. Our foes profit from this and a measure of good fortune, bringing reinforcements to shore up their flanks. Our troops withdraw under cover of musket fire from our blockhouses, abandoning our artillery to the foe. All we can do now is to keep the enemy from penetrating the fortifications. Had he made better use of his advantage, he might have cut us off from the town, which would have spelled our ruin.
We are at the gates of the town, and can now sing our victory. Yes, we have won, but at such a cost.
Our artillery being of poor quality. To avoid being caught defenseless later, Monsieur le Chevalier de Levis gives the order to fire each gun no more than 20 times per day until such time as relief arrives. If but one of our frigates should appear in the river before the British fleet does, the fate of Quebec will be sealed. But it is a British squadron that is spotted on May 9th, with more thereafter. May 15th, Monsieur de Levis gives the order to remove the artillery from the trenches and retreat towards Montreal.